Greetings, this is iVideo. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. Today we'll continue our recent series on World War II, and particularly our look at that facet of World War II associated with the concentration camps and generally understood today by the term Holocaust. We are a little bit apprehensive, uncomfortable with the term Holocaust because it has over time developed such a strong religious overtone, and many Jews treat the Holocaust as a high religious date, event, and we have mentioned that some consider the Holocaust a defining issue, event in Jewry, the life of Jewry. So there is this particular aspect. I have told you and will tell you again that we view this event as part of world history, and as such is something subject to investigation by dispassionate people looking to find out the fact and truth of the matter, to draw inferences from these facts, and to be able to present to the world a fairly accurate portrayal of events relative to World War II. Well, with this in mind, we are continuing our series, and to do this, we will now continue our look at the concentration camps. We have dealt with the numbers, as you recall. We have gotten the figure 1 to 1.5 million Jews as the optimum possible number, which could have been harmed, killed, exterminated in the Nazi-occupied Germany and Europe. Now, we have also looked at some of the concentration camps, so let's now continue in that vein. In 1988, Fred A. Luter, the leading American authority on the construction of gas chambers for use in capital punishment in the American justice system, carried out extensive scientific studies of the alleged gas chambers at Auschwitz that are shown to visiting tourists as a place where 6 million died, or whatever the favorite figure happens to be at the time. Here's Luter's own summary of his far more comprehensive scientific findings. None of the facilities examined at Auschwitz, Birkenau, or Lublin could have supported, or in fact did support, multiple executions utilizing hydrogen cyanide, carbon monoxide, or any other allegedly or factually lethal gas. Based upon very generous maximum usage rates, all the alleged gas chambers, totaling 1,692 persons per week, and assuming these facilities could support gas executions, it would have required 68 years to execute the alleged number of 6 million of persons. If the crematories operated at a theoretical rate of maximum output per day without any downtime and at a constant pace, an impossible situation, and we accept the figure of at least 6 million executed, the Third Reich lasted 35 years at an impossible minimum to cremate these 6 million of souls. A detailed analysis of the 32 samples at the Auschwitz-Birkenau complexes showed 1,050 milligrams per kilogram of cyanide and 6,170 milligrams per kilogram of iron. Higher iron results were found at all of the alleged gas chambers, but no significant cyanide traces. This would be impossible if these sites were exposed to hydrogen cyanide gas, since the alleged gas chambers supposedly were exposed to much greater quantities of gas than the delousing facility. Thus, chemical analysis further supports the fact that these facilities were never utilized as gas execution facilities. Construction of these facilities further shows that they were never used as gas chambers. None of these facilities was ever sealed or gasketed. No provision was ever made to prevent condensation of gas on the walls, floor, or ceiling. No provision ever existed to exhaust the air-gas mixture from these buildings. No provision ever existed to introduce or distribute the gas throughout the chamber. No explosion-proof lighting existed, and no attempt was ever made to prevent gas from entering the crematories, even though the gas is highly explosive. No attempt was made to protect operating personnel from exposure to the gas or to protect other non-participating persons from exposure. Specifically, at Auschwitz, a floor drain in the alleged gas chamber was connected directly to the camp's storm drain system. At Majdanek, a depressed walkway around the alleged gas chambers would have collected gas seepage and resulted in a death trap for camp personnel. No exhaust stacks ever existed. Hydrogen cyanide gas is an extremely dangerous and lethal gas, and nowhere were there any provisions to effect any amount of safe handling. The chambers were too small to accommodate more than a small fraction of the alleged numbers. Plain and simple, these facilities could not have operated as execution gas chambers. This is a citation from the facts and the myths about the Holocaust, page 23. Now, you may find this extraordinary and maybe even incredible, but I do want you to see it and to understand that there is this point of view, these facts to back it up and so forth. So please consider. On March 30th, 1988, the New York Times described as a claim so grotesque the statement by Swedish Holocaust revisionist Ditlev Federer that at the Auschwitz concentration camp there was a swimming pool, dance hall, and concert auditorium for its inmates. In fact, such facilities did exist at the camp. Some historians who've admitted that these facilities did indeed exist have attempted to suggest that these facilities were strictly for the use of the camp guards and their families. However, one Holocaust survivor, Mark Klein, a professor in the medical school at the University of Strasbourg, who was an inmate at Auschwitz, revealed this. On Sunday afternoon, there were soccer, basketball, and water polo matches to the ardent cheers of the spectators. People needed very little to distract them from the dangers that threatened them. The SS administration allowed regular amusements for the prisoners, even on weekdays. A movie theater showed Nazi newsreels and sentimental films, and a very popular cabaret gave presentations often attended by the SS authorities. Finally, there was a very creditable orchestra made up originally only of Polish musicians and replaced later by a new high-quality group made up of musicians of all nationalities, mostly Jews. Taken from Klein's article published in the journal Études Germaniques, number 3, 1946, 1948, page 31, a citation from the Facts and the Myths about the Holocaust, page 10. I think you'll find this fascinating. Please attend. In 1981, Jack Glenn, director of the popular 1940s newsreel series March of Time, died at age 76. His obituary, distributed by the Associated Press and published in the Bergen, New Jersey Sunday Record on February 15, 1981, let slip an amazing revelation. According to the obit, as senior director for the popular movie house newsreel, he often created world events with actors and movie sets. One such news feature film, Inside Nazi Germany, made in 1938, included footage of a concentration camp that was filmed on Staten Island with scores of New York City actors. Much of the film's footage was shot within the borders of the Third Reich by a freelance cameraman, but Louis Rochemont, Glenn's producer, felt that the film had been censored by German authorities and ordered Glenn to reenact widely reported Nazi camp atrocities. So it was that the media itself was already creating a Holocaust before the so-called atrocities had even allegedly started happening. And millions of Americans watching the newsreel in their local theaters were convinced that they were seeing the real thing. How many such images of reality that we see on a regular basis are actually the creation of movie magic? This is a citation from the Facts and the Myths About the Holocaust, page 8. Please attend. Duped again. After a 1994 German TV documentary showing what alleged to be German men in Ku Klux Klan robes burning a cross, German officials went on a search for what they thought was a local chapter of racists. What they found was a hoax. Authorities say Michael Born, a well-known German freelancer, got his buddies to dress up like Klansmen because he knew Germany is eager to broadcast incidences of racism. Prosecutors found that Born had concocted and sold at least 22 documentaries to German TV from 1991 until his arrest in December of 1995. Prosecutor Norbert Weiss said Born mixed fiction with reality in his films. Born confessed to fakery, but offered as a defense. Many others do it too. In fact, Born claims he was encouraged by the German networks to doctor news and fake documentaries to boost the ratings. This is a citation from the Spotlight, March 11, 1996, page 2. Consider, if you will. In Steven Spielberg's Hollywood extravaganza, Schindler's List, the chief villain is concentration camp commander Amon Goeth, who is repeatedly shown brutalizing inmates and gunning down innocent prisoners from a balcony of his home at the camp. What is not known to the millions of people who saw Schindler's List, however, is that in September of 1944, Goeth was arrested and imprisoned for corruption and the murder of concentration camp inmates by the SS Hauptamtgericht, the central office of the SS judiciary. The arrest of the camp commander came following an investigation by the German military judge Konrad Morgan and officers of the Reichs Kriminalpolizeiamt, known as Bureau 5 of the Reich Security Main Office. In fact, the SS maintained an internal security police force whose mission was the arrest and prosecution of German camp personnel involved in corruption or brutality. In Spielberg's film, Goeth's hanging is depicted, but the audience is never told that it was, in fact, the Germans who executed one of their own for his misdeeds against the Jews. This is just another of those oddities about the Holocaust and the image of the Holocaust presented by Hollywood that makes one question what really did happen during that tragic era. And it's another reason to question the facts that we've been told. This is a citation from the Facts and the Myths About the Holocaust, page 8. Now, if I can call your attention to an earlier point, Jewish Holocaust historian Arno Mayer, writing in Why Do the Heavens Not Darken, states on page 365 of his book that Birkenau was the site of Auschwitz's main medical facility and quarantine center. If indeed Germany intended the destruction of European Jewry, why would they maintain a medical facility at the camp to keep ailing Jews alive? Why would the Nazis maintain a quarantine center to prevent the spread of contagious diseases that, if run rampant, obviously would help further their purported aim of eliminating the Jews of Europe? The very presence of such a hospital for inmates should alone cause people to question the official stories of the Holocaust that we have been taught for the last half century. This is a citation from the Facts and the Myths About the Holocaust, page 9. Furthermore, it should be emphasized straight away that there is not a single document in existence which proves that the Germans intended to or carried out the deliberate murder of Jews. In Poliakoff and Wolff's Das Dritte Reich und die Juden Dokument und Aufsatz, Berlin, 1955, the most that they can assemble are statements extracted after the war from people like Hertel, Ohlendorf, and Vysotsky, the latter under torture in a Soviet prison. In the absence of any evidence, therefore, Poliakoff is forced to write, the 3 or 4 people chiefly involved in drawing up the plan for total extermination are dead, and no documents survive. This seems quite convenient. A citation from Did 6 Million Really Die? Page 8. Now, I'd like to break in at this point to say that such expressions as no documents survive, it happens to be a logical trick. It is basically the combination of 2 questions. One, were there documents? And 2, did they survive? So that one is, who hears the combined question is tricked into thinking that they must have been some. You need to divide that question, that seemingly one question, to its 2 components in which you can easily handle the matter. When otherwise sane and intelligent people affirm nonsense, it behooves us to inquire into the reason. Falling into that category is the recent finding by the American Jewish Committee that American Jews believe anti-Semitism is a greater threat than intermarriage by a margin of 57% to 38%. The professed fear of resurgent anti-Semitism goes hand in hand with the elevation of the Holocaust to the defining element in Jewish self-identity. All surveys of American Jewry place the Holocaust way ahead of any other factor in Jewish self-identity. Between 75% and 85% of American Jews rate the Holocaust as a very important factor in their sense of themselves as Jews, far higher than belief in God, Torah, or Israel. We focus on the Holocaust as the defining event in Jewish history. Now, this is a citation from the Truth at Last, issue number 407, page 7, citing Jerusalem Post, column by Rabbi Jonathan Rosenblum. Now, to refresh your memory some, please consider. On May 7, 1945, the Soviet Jewish Anti-Fascist Committee held a press conference in Moscow. Committee Chairman Solomon Michaels announced that the NKVD, the secret police, had discovered a Holocaust of Jews. Michaels said that 4 million Jews had perished at Auschwitz. It must be noted that the officers of the Jewish Anti-Fascist Committee were on the payroll of the NKVD, and their actual office was located in the NKVD building in Moscow. The New York Times had their chief European correspondent attend the press conference called the day before the war ended. He was C.L. Sulzberger, whose multimillionaire grandfather in New York City spent part of his fortune paying the expenses of thousands of Russian Jews fleeing to America after the failure of the 1905 communist revolt against the Christian Tsar. Well, let me break in here to make 2 points. First of all, the NKVD, the intelligence operations of the USSR, have consistently been under the control of Jews from Lenin all the way to even the most recent one who died, Andropov. But at any rate, the second point to be made here is that there could possibly be some confusion in the sense that Jacob Schiff, whose descendants control the New York Post, was also somebody who spent many millions of dollars to help the Russian Jews, the communists, overthrow the Tsarist regime, and he may have been more of a factor than Sulzberger, and there may have been some confusion here, although I'm sure Sulzberger, that his family contributed also. But Jacob Schiff was certainly a main figure, and that maybe should be borne in mind. But let us continue with this citation. Sulzberger flashed the news to the world that a massacre of Jews had been discovered. However, reporters and others were not allowed to visit Auschwitz to see for themselves. The liberal media quickly accepted the Soviet story without question. I, your editor, Dr. Fields, added that the true figure of Jews who died of all causes is between 250,000 and 300,000. They died of typhus, starvation, cold weather, etc. Also, while there are thousands of pages of evidence that not a single person was ever gassed and that not one workable gas chamber has ever been located, also, there's not one signed order to carry out such mass killings, no document providing for provisions, instructions, or on how to carry out such a huge massacre or how to dispose of 6 million bodies. Bear in mind that the Holocaust allegedly occurred during a short time frame of less than 3 years between 1942 and 1944. Today, there's only one small building at Auschwitz which tourists are shown as the gas chamber. However, the curator of the Auschwitz Museum states on the David Cole video that the gas chamber was built after the war by the Soviet NKVD to show tourists what a real gas chamber looked like. Even the chimney behind the building in which the cremations are said to have taken place was so clumsily erected that it is not even attached to the building, as anyone can see who walks around to the back. The Jewish Black Book Committee met in New York City in early 1946. They announced the publication of a book which claims that the final total figure of Jews gassed by the Germans was 6 million. Some 4 million were at Auschwitz and 2 million at 3 other locations. No gas chambers have ever been located at the other places either. The committee was made up of 4 organizations. They were the NKVD-directed Jewish Anti-Fascist Committee from Moscow, the American Committee of Jewish Writers, Artists, and Scientists of New York, a Communist Party front, the World Jewish Congress, and Vad Lumi, both Zionist groups. They received their information from the Soviet NKVD, and it was accepted without question. It is of particular interest that the very first communist reports of a Holocaust declared that the Jews had been electrocuted, not gassed. It was only later, when this method was considered impossible for killing such a vast number of people, that the story was changed to death by gassing. This is a citation from The Truth at Last, issue number 407, page 7. Oops, another impossibility comes to light. Well, not to be daunted by these dreaded facts that keep popping up and whatnot, the proponents continue to hold firm. Well, that's it. That's all she wrote. We have no more time. This is iVideo. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. Thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you again next time.